Sometimes, the most frightening thing about our legal system is its failure to bring murderers to justice. So-called cold cases can sit in police filing cabinets for decades, slowly gathering dust while murderers run free and victims seek answers. The cold, hard truth is that sometimes murders are never solved. Detectives are simply left with nothing to go on, giving them no choice but to scratch their heads in confusion. Often, there just isn't enough evidence to convict, even if investigators are 99% sure that someone committed the crime. Fortunately, new technology has the power to finally bring murderers to justice. Case in point. Thomas Garner was recently convicted for a pair of murders dating back about 40 years. These cold cases were left unsolved until new DNA techniques and evidence linked Garner to the crimes. This is an encouraging tale for all of those family members who are still waiting for murderers to face legal consequences for their actions. Thomas Garner was eventually charged with murdering 2 women over a period of time spanning from 1982 to 1984. His first victim was Kathy Warnett Hicks, who was just 25 at the time of her death. Thomas was 22. The murder occurred in Honolulu, Hawaii, while Hicks was working for Delta Airlines. Although she lived in Georgia, Hicks was in Honolulu for a company softball tournament. During her stay at her hotel, she met a mysterious man her coworkers later described as Tommy. After she got into the elevator with this individual, her coworkers never saw her alive again. At 10 a.m. the next morning, joggers found Hicks on the side of a road. She had been strangled to death, and there were signs of an assault. Police had very little to go on. All they knew about Tommy was that he was a man of mixed race with a height of about 6 feet. Police recovered DNA evidence from the remains, but that evidence would be useless until technology developed further over the next few decades. Thomas Garner struck again 2 years later. This time, his victim was Pamela Cahanes, a 25-year-old Navy recruit who was serving her country at the time of her passing. Both Cahanes and Garner were attending classes at the Orlando Naval Training Center together. 2 days after Cahanes graduated, she was found dead in the backyard of a vacant home, wearing nothing but her undergarments and covered in blood. Like Hicks, she was strangled and beaten to death, and DNA was recovered from the scene. For the next 37 years, Garner continued to live his life in freedom while the family members of these 2 women grieved. Over this period, investigators continued to try to use the DNA evidence to track down the killer. Unfortunately, they experienced little success. Finally, in 2015, a full 30 years later, a group of investigators decided to think outside the box. They used the DNA from the murder scene to run a test with GED Match, a private forensic genealogy service. This determined that the murderer was someone with African heritage. Next, they ran further testing with Parabon nanolabs to recreate the suspect's family tree. This led investigators to Thomas Garner, but they still couldn't be sure. Detectives eventually tracked him down to Seminole County, Florida, where they watched him for several days. Finally, they struck gold when Garner threw a cigarette butt, a cotton swab, and a piece of dental floss into the trash. These items were tested, and DNA was recovered. It was a match. With this evidence clearly linking Garner to the death of Cahanes, he was arrested in 2019. He was then interviewed by police investigators.
I have to think that at some juncture, it has to be a little relieving. Is there any? Are you feeling any relief?
Relief for what?
Relief that after all this time that we're finally coming to talk to you?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. So you're familiar with the case we came and talked to you about earlier today?
I'm not familiar with anything you talked to me about today.
All right. Well, we came to talk to you today about the murder of Pamela Cahanes from 1984. She was a recruit on the Navy base. She graduated on a Friday, and on Sunday morning she was found deceased in Sanford, Florida, dumped in a yard.
So if we stop right here, we can see that Thomas is vehemently denying having anything to do with the murder of Pamela Cahanes. He repeatedly claims that he had no idea about anything the investigator was talking about, and denies knowing Pamela.
Okay, so obviously it's been a long 34 and a half years, but the case has been worked consistently since 1984, jointly between Seminole County Sheriff's Office and NCIS. Obviously, we have evidence against you, as to why we have an arrest warrant for you and why we're here. So we just want to talk to you and see if you still want to maintain that you have nothing to do with this investigation, that you have nothing to do with this homicide.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
That's basically what I was saying this morning. I have no idea what you're talking about in terms of anything that's happened on that base.
Okay. Well, I can't say that it happened on the base, okay? Because she was found in Sanford, Florida, dumped in a yard of an abandoned house, a house for sale that was vacated at the time. So I can't say that it happened on the base. I can't say that it happened right there in Sanford, Florida, but somewhere more than likely between the base and Sanford, Florida is where it happened. She was strangled and somewhat beat up and left in the side yard where a neighbor found her on Sunday morning when he was leaving for work. So you're probably asking what evidence we have.
I don't know what kind of evidence you have. I don't know what's going on, period.
Okay.
It's just when I walk out the door, I mean, you guys come in this morning and start talking about something, 30 years ago. I can't remember things that happened 10 years ago.
Okay.
So
well,
I don't have any.
The picture we showed you of the girl earlier, Pamela Cahanes, which I'd like for you to look at again. I mean, is there a chance that you just, you've blocked it out of your memory from this amount of time?
I can't remember.
You've had a relationship with her?
I don't know anybody. I wouldn't have had a relationship with her. I was involved in a relationship at the time.
Okay, so.
Now the lead investigator hits him with the truth. They have the DNA results, and they clearly link Garner to the crime, and they know he did it. Watch his reaction. You can see that he becomes visibly flabbergasted. He doesn't know what to say. He can barely form words. In the end, he goes back to his original tactic. Blind denial. Deny everything, no matter what.
So if you didn't have sex with our victim, Pamela Cahanes, how did your semen get on her?
My semen?
Yes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm telling you, when she was found, there's semen on her. Okay, and they've taken that semen obviously and done analysis over the years, and it has very recently been proven that it is yours. It is your DNA. So how do you explain your semen on her?
I don't know. I don't know how that could be possible.
Now we can see that the investigators are desperately trying to convince Thomas to do the right thing and confess to the crime. They tell him time and time again, the evidence is irrefutable. You can't argue with the DNA results. While it's true that officers can lie to you during an investigation to prompt a confession, this is not one of those cases. At the beginning of the interview, Garner lies and says he didn't remember meeting Cahanes, and that he was never with her that night, and that he certainly never had relations with her. Because of that lie, he's caught in a trap. He can't go back on what he said earlier, and he can't confess. If he never met her, and never had relations with her, then how did his DNA get on the victim? He has no answers, because he can't deny the truth.
I mean, this is bizarre. This is almost like the Twilight Zone.
So, Mr. Garner, I realize that this is not an easy thing to talk about. This is a big deal. But what we just told you is infutable. We know that you were with her. We know your DNA is on her. That cannot happen by chance. It's impossible. So this has been 35 years. You and I, we talked. I was being real with you. we talked about God. I do believe in God. I believe you believe in God. We talked about our parents. And that was the God's honest truth about my dad passing just a week ago. All that. I'm being real with you. This is an opportunity to not live with this anymore, not to be burdened. If you're a man of God, I believe that this has got to be burdening you. This from so long ago when you were a young guy has got to be somewhere deep down inside you. It's got to be something that is eating at you, even if you don't realize it right now. And we talked about our parents. I mean, I would think your mom would want you to be the man that you want to be and own up to something when we make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
No, that was not something that I would do, period. I would not do anything crazy like that. I wasn't like that when I was coming up. I'm not even like that now. So.
Well, I mean, we do, like he said, you can't dispute it. I mean, you can't dispute the science. We don't believe you were the only one involved. We do believe that somebody else was involved, and we were hoping that, again, like I was saying, this has to be some sense of relief. You have to have been looking over your shoulder for 35 years.
I don't have an idea.
Because the semen's not the only DNA on her, okay? Your DNA is under her fingernails as well. And the numbers are astronomical. It's like 1 in 82 billion chances it's anybody else. And there's not even that many people in the world. Not even close to that many people in the world. So like he's saying, you can't dispute the science, you can't dispute the numbers. It doesn't just get there by chance. So we know you were there. If it happened differently than the way that we feel it happened, that's what we want you to tell us.
I realize it's a wake-up call, but it's going to be proven that it's your DNA and that you were there. This is your opportunity to tell us the circumstances around it. And if anybody else was involved at all, why should you have to take the fall for it 100%? Because that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen to you if you don't take this opportunity to talk to us.
What I'm going to do is maintain my innocence.
Okay.
And that's the way it is.
How can you do that?
How can I do that? Because I know that I wouldn't do anything that would cause anybody.
No, I'm saying, how can you prove your innocence?
Well, how can you prove that I'm not innocent?
We already have, with DNA in multiple locations on her and multiple types of DNA. Like I said, we got the skin cells, we got the semen as well. So, I mean, he's saying, I mean, this. You're there. You were there. If something happened differently, or you remember being with her and then you left and somebody else was still with her when you left her, tell us that.
I can't remember anything like that happening.
I would think you would remember if you killed somebody.
Yeah, I think you would.
Okay.
Of course you would. You wouldn't be able to, I guess the person with a conscience wouldn't be able to live with that.
Right.
But I would not. To me, I can't see myself being in a scenario like that.
Well, you were in the scenario with her because, again, we have your DNA. So if you're with her and then you left her with somebody else, you need to tell us that. And you need to tell us who that person was.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
The investigators point out that there is evidence that Garner has been violent towards women in the past, even though he technically has a clean record. They allow him to ramble on about his past marriage before showing him a picture of the victim's throat. The strategy for the investigators is to allow Garner to talk about the inconsequential issues before suddenly confronting him with the reality of the murders he's committed.
So, yeah, we found an injunction from Adrian that says she woke up one night with your hand covering her mouth and nose.
No, it was a nonviolent injunction.
Okay, well, I'm saying that's what's in the injunction. Do you remember
but
that?
she was lying. She's been physical with me, but she didn't put that in there. And what happened was relationship wasn't working out. And I told her that, we could go ahead and get a divorce. And even I just seen her, like, what today is? Tuesday, yesterday. No, Monday. And she was at the credit union. And she came over and gave me a hug, and she said, God bless you. And I said, how's the kids doing? And she said, he's doing great. One of them was in the military. The other one is in Seattle. They both married, got kids. And she gave me a hug, huh?
She's moved on. I mean, it's been a long time.
Yeah, we didn't end in that kind of way. I mean, when I got the divorce, I just said, hey, I just told her, listen, we don't have to fight over the house or anything. I said, I'll move out. So that was it. That's her fourth marriage. And she was on depressants. She was taking antidepressants, and she was accusing me of taking the lucid and the lug nuts on her car. And I said, why would I do that when I'm driving it? You know what I mean? I mean, she was hallucinating and all kind of stuff. I'd never been with somebody who was depressed and taking medications and making up stuff.
Can you put your glasses on? This is her throat.
Now the investigators bring up another past example of Garner's violence towards women. Note that this instance involves strangulation, the exact cause of death of his two victims.
The medical examiner said it was a very forceful strangulation.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about earlier at your place that imagine her parents, her family, that they buried her at 25 years old. She was a kid, and they have not had an answer to this for 35 years. Well, they now have an answer. At least they know who was involved. But if you could talk to us, tell us what happened. They don't have to envision the worst. They don't have to envision what they're going to envision.
I don't know how many times I'm going to tell you the same thing. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. How about, we talked about some of this history. Well, how about what happened between you and Sanders?
I told you he came to the door drunk one night, and he was banging on the door, and I asked him not to do that.
What I really want to ask you about is the movie theater incident in December of 1984.
Century 21 theater.
Mm-hmm.
Involving a white female.
What happened?
I'm going to read you this is his sworn testimony. This is what he testified to. And then I'm going to read you what you testified to.
Okay.
He wrote, I have known Petty Officer Garner about 1 year and 5 months. I know him from working with him and on social basis. A group of black males from the dental clinic went to Century 21 Theater this past Christmas. That was Christmas 1984. And a white lady came over and we were talking, and they were trying to watch the movie, and she stated, would you boys kind of keep it down? We're trying to watch the movie. She went back to her seat. Petty Officer Garner got up, went over and said something to her. The next thing I know, he had grabbed her around the throat and flung her into a row of seats.
No.
I went over and grabbed Petty Officer Garner and restrained him and pushed him out the door, keeping the lady back who had grabbed 2 bottles that she was going to hit him with.
Do you recall that incident?
Yeah, I kind of vaguely recall it. I remember we sitting in there and they said something to us, and I think I said something back, kind of snippy, and I think she threw some water or something on me, and I just pushed her back and everything. And I don't remember grabbing her or anything like that. But what did I say on there?
We had all gotten together and had decided to go to Century 21, which is a dinner-type movie theater. I wasn't feeling very well at the time, but I was just tagging along with them. Some of the guys were drinking and eating pizza. They became very boisterous and really loud in the theater, and there was a movie going on at the time. A lady came over and asked us boys if we could hold the noise down. She walked away. The guys were saying that she was a bitch. I told them that I was getting ready to go, and I went over to her table and told her that she didn't have to call us boys, but that she could have just asked that we keep the noise down. She jumped up and called me a goddamn nigger and took a beer mug with beer in it and threw it on me. I pushed her. Sanders came over and got between us and told her that she better put that beer mug down. We walked outside to leave, and she walked behind us and yelled to call the police. She was throwing ice or popcorn at us.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Sanders about this while in the brig, and he said that it was exaggerated to make me look bad, but it wasn't like that at all.
All right. I remember that situation because it was kind of like a silly, stupid kind of deal. You know, you could be somewhere and people can just do stuff and say things, but you said I put up my hand around her neck. I didn't put my hands around her neck.
Sanders said that.
Yeah, he was
Which is very particular. That's a very particular memory. I mean, obviously, it's a 35-year-old memory.
No. I remember little things that, like things that can be traumatic, that stand out. Yeah, I remember that.
Once again, Thomas brushes it off, claiming he never put his hands around the neck of the woman, but the investigators seemed unimpressed, and they are beginning to lose their patience.
All right, so Mr. Garner, I know we can go round and round like this,
Yeah,
but I
sure
mean, I
can.
hope you understand. I hope you understand what we're telling you.
Well,
You're facing a first-degree murder charge. First degree. That's premeditated murder.
Mm-hmm.
And we can prove that you were with her sexually when she died. This is your opportunity. You gotta recognize that.
Well, I don't know.
And you need to tell us what else happened, and let us mitigate this situation and figure out, especially if anybody else is involved. Why should you have to take the 100% hit on this if anybody else was around?
Well, the only thing I see is that we keep going back and forth with this thing, and maybe I might need to have an attorney, because it's you saying one thing and I'm saying another thing.
Okay.
So
I got you.
So that would be the case. I get an attorney. Hopefully, I don't have the kind of money it takes to get one of them real powerful attorneys that can make you guys prove everything to the reasonable doubt that I was anywhere involved in any kind of craziness like what you're saying.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I've had some situations going, but I don't have a police record. I don't have I've never been trying to hide myself. I've been given my fingerprints, everything else. I don't have a history of any kind of situation. So we have to do what we have to do. And I have to get an attorney that can show me what my rights are. I mean, I invited you guys to come into my home. You come in and we talked. And then I come outside and right in front of my neighbors, you guys pulled weapons on me and, humiliated me out there in front of everybody. And I'm like, man, this is just incredible. It's like I can't even fathom anything like this going on in my life. So I would get an attorney and we would have to fight this thing to get myself proven innocent. And I guess my life from this point on out is going to be ruined no matter what.
That's not for us to decide.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
so let me just tell you what's going to happen, because you read your rights and and you waived those rights, but now, which is your right to go back and you would like to see an attorney.
Right, because I want to make sure that my rights are that I have representation, somebody who can legally represent me in a way that.
Right. So we're going to cease asking any more questions about this. What we're going to do is we're going to transport you to the Seminole County Jail, where you'll be booked on first-degree murder, and then you'll see a judge, and you'll have a time. They'll explain your rights to you.
Tomorrow at 1:30 will be your first appearance.
And then you're going to, then they'll work out all the, between the prosecutors and stuff. They'll, if you need a public defender, then they'll get you a public defender. If you have an attorney, then that's when all that will take place. Does that make sense?
We got to do what we got to do.
Okay. So just relax. Have some water. We'll get you ready for transport. Okay. We'll go.
They give Garner one last chance to confess, but he sticks to his guns. The moment he asks to speak to an attorney, the investigators are legally required to immediately stop questioning him. And they do. We can only wonder whether it's finally starting to sink in for Garner that he will spend the rest of his life in prison. The interrogation ends with Thomas being escorted to jail. We don't know for sure, but perhaps Thomas realizes he will never taste freedom again at this very moment. Thomas went on to insist he was innocent for the next few years, eventually pleading not guilty for the murder of Pamela Cahanes. His trial took place in 2021, and it was clear from the very beginning that his chances of walking free were slim. It took the jury just 2 hours to deliberate on their decision. Guilty on all charges. During the trial, prosecutors suggested that this was not the first time he had done this, alluding to the earlier murder of Hicks in Hawaii, Hawaiian authorities eventually requested the DNA evidence and came to their own conclusions, finally pressing charges against Garner for his first murder in 2021. As a result, his bail was set at $2 million, and authorities reportedly planned to extradite him to Hawaii so he could stand trial. That case is still ongoing, but one thing is for sure: Garner is going to stay behind bars for the rest of his life. DNA evidence has been an absolute game changer for the criminal justice system. With new technology, cold cases like this are finally being re-examined. Family members are experiencing a long overdue justice after decades of wondering and waiting. Garner is just one example of an unsolved murder, and there are many others throughout the nation. As our technology continues to advance, more murderers will be brought to justice. There's just one problem. Thomas Garner was able to continue with his life after murdering 2 women for 37 years as if nothing happened. During this time, the victims' families were dealing with the life-changing grief and sorrow. Thomas Garner is an old man now. He lived a life filled with freedom and rewarding experiences before finally being brought to justice. We can only hope that in the future, men like him are caught much quicker.
I hope she's looking down saying, good, got him, good. Great day, great day.
I just figured she wouldn't lay rest until we caught the one that did it. And I'm so happy that came today.